Welcome. Ziggy now here with Michael Ham. Michael, how are you doing tonight, sir?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. This is Breaking Bad, guys. Welcome to Breaking Bad, our introductory first live discussion. The purpose of this is an open discussion dialogue on sports card breaking from the perspective of people who buy into the breaks. Neither Mike Ham and I are breakers. We don't run breaking companies. We're not representing breakers. We're going to talk about breakers. We're going to talk about
Hmm.
why we do what we do. We're going to talk the politics, the regulations, the non-regulation. We're going to get into it, man. And hopefully, this is a good dialogue for other people. Please leave comments, questions. Join us. Our other goal is to run the show every other week on Wednesday nights around 9 o'clock. We're going to go the opposite weeks of our hobby heroes on off center, so we can if off center's on, we're not going to be on that night. Probably it's kind of the way I look at it. That being said, Mike, welcome, man. Tell us your thoughts on the show and what you're looking for, and let's kick this thing
Uh,
off.
I think we're just gonna be one of these shows that we're gonna disagree to disagree on certain things. I don't know if we're gonna change each other's minds. We both have very specific thought processes in what we do, and it's just gonna be interesting to see where it goes and what we get into in that debate. At the end of the day, I'm sure there's gonna be things we agree on completely. But at the end of the day, there's a debate piece to this that's pretty big, and like you said, a lot of people don't talk about this, and we're here to talk about it and
Yep.
see what we can come up with and what type of community is surrounding this that may want to entertain, watching, talking, and being a part of this as well.
Absolutely. Like one thing I think we both agree on, and I think it's something we should point out. We both agree breaking is gambling. If you're
Yes.
buying into a break, it's a form of gambling. I don't care if you're PYT, random, whatever it might be, you're participating in a gamble.
I
Fair?
think if you open up a pack, you're gambling. If there's an odd on a pack to hit something of
Yep.
value, and we can go into the whole, prior to the boom, there was
Yep.
value, but it wasn't the same. Now
Yep.
they're straight lottery tickets. Back then it was low end lottery ticket. There wasn't no $20, $30 scratch off. And today we have $1,000 scratch offs. Where you're
Yep.
opening a case of cards to get as much money as possible out of it. But
You're absolutely right.
it's
In fact,
changed a lot.
I remember before COVID, for myself, my sons and I were very active in the hobby 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, up until COVID. COVID kind of changed things for them. But I remember we used to chase Prism basketball because if you got a silver Prism of the right rookie, the hot rookie that year, so whether it was Ben Simmons or KAT or,
Hmm.
Lonzo Ball or Tatum, it was basically like $100 hit. A
Yeah.
raw silver Prism was $100, and that was cool. And it would
Yeah.
fund your hobby. And my kids got into it. And I would say it's also the first time I realized my kids understood the value because they knew the difference between a basic Prism and a silver Prism. And let me ask you this, Mike. So I agree with you too. If the modern hobby today is a form of gambling risk, does it need
Yes.
regulation then? Like, is it like a kid can't go buy a lotto ticket, but a kid can buy a blaster box? And I don't
At,
know.
at the end of the day, it's getting so big, and with whatever Fanatic's going to do, there's going to have to be something, and that might be part of a long-term plan for Ruben. Also, being able to get the gambling aspect with sports betting to bring that into sports card. He wants everything he owns to overlap. He's looking for one big blanket with a bunch of patches on it. He's quilting it, baby. That's what he's doing. He's making
Yep.
a quilt, and that's his end game. All right. Does it need to be regulated? It'd be nice to have a true third party behind these things because we already know there's a ton of shenanigans that have gone on. And it's like a relationship. The only way you're ever going to get over it is to wipe the slate clean, know that it happened, and I'm watching, but I got to move forward.
Yep.
But we're not there yet because we don't have anybody to regulate it, and if we don't want the government getting involved, they get involved, we're in a much worse situation. People will just stop collecting
So,
cards, I think.
so I agree and disagree. So my thoughts are, I agree it's gambling. My
Mhm.
next comment is, if you look at gambling today, every gambling organization, which there are many now, they all
Mhm.
have some type of regulation. It's mainly the state level, right? The state gaming commission regulates casinos. They
Yeah.
regulate even if you want to get your gaming app in a different state, right? You got to work with the state on that.
Mhm.
Do you think gaming should? I mean, do you think sports card breaking would fall under that? And I don't have to answer this tonight. That's one of the challenges I think we have to go into. I remember asking a breaker this week, "Do you think breaking should be regulated?" He goes, "Well, do you regulate a kid going in and buying a box?" And I can't say yes to that. Like, I think that
Yeah.
would be terrible. But
No.
at the same time, I don't like breaking is clearly, like you said, opening a box with the. I guess it's intent. Maybe it's
Yes,
intent.
it is intent.
I don't
But
know.
where in the world now card opening and box opening is an intent? Because if you, I mean, I was at the store the other day, and I'm like watching a guy buy a $350 box of card for his kids to open.
Yep.
I'm like, are you kidding me? That's a lot of money just to open for funsies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's just doing that? And obviously a lot of people are. But there's also
Yeah.
that thrill, and that's why we see these kids with these monster cases of cards. You know, I was at trade night, and there's a 12-year-old that has more graded cards than I even own, and better cards than I own. And I'm like, who
Yeah.
funded that? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because somebody's funding you. We
Yeah.
know how much it takes to get into something like that. Even if
Yeah.
you're just buying the card, there's a lot that goes into that. A lot of money.
Yep. No, absolutely. So, I guess as we progress, one thing we both agree on this is gambling.
Mhm.
And I think one of the questions, one thing I think about is, can it be self-regulated? Can we as a community come together and do something? You're nodding your head no. I'm
Nope.
wishing we could.
I wish you could. The only way you'll ever do it is to be inside the company and have some type of moral consent within the company. That's not going to happen.
Well, let me give you an
Listen,
example.
remember, we're in a game that's rigged against us, just like a casino. Okay, they're operating a baby casino. They print cards that print money.
So,
And they
but
can
they
print it
being
as
the
much as they want.
manufacturer, or they being the breaker, like for example, couldn't
The
like
manufacturer, but the manufacturer is now controlled by the breaker, and the breaker is controlled by the manufacturer. Their hands are in the same pocket right now, because right now, if a breaker does not have product, he cannot keep his audience, and a company can say, well, you're going to have to get into this product at this price in order to get this product, and they can't say no,
so
because if they
here's
miss out on the product, then they lose their audience to somebody else.
okay. So here's my thoughts on this. First of all, I think if Fanatics had sole control of the major three licenses, they could do a better job of controlling breaker behavior. Right? They're not going to control it all the way down the tier, but they can have a pat. They can come out and say, if you're going to be on Fanatics Live, if you're getting allocated pricing from our product,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to meet the following things. Like for example, right? Price transparency. I'm not going to ask for price control. I think that's ridiculous. But some type of transparency. You have to publish your prices. All prices be published. We both know breakers who will put their prices out, and as soon as the spot gets filled, they cover the price. Right, the price is gone.
Yep.
Right, because they don't want you to know how much they sold it for. Right. I think
Yep.
that should be something that's very simple. Price transparency. Fanatics can control that. Now you're right. Down the chain, people are going to do what they want to. I also think me as a consumer, I'm not as loyal to a breaker where I'm going to sit there and wait to fill his brakes. I'm going to go to where I can get into a break that's going to fill. So if a breaker has product or not,
I say yes and no to that, and it's only because I'm going back to stuff I've heard you say
yeah,
before, where you like specific people for specific things.
it depends. It depends, but you're right.
Yes.
But I will go hunt for other things. Like if they don't
Yes.
have it, it's so funny. I will also tolerate stuff from breakers that I don't like.
See, I won't.
Right.
I won't.
So
I'll
I,
refuse
I
to get
will,
into something.
and what I mean by that is, I think every breaker I'm involved with does repacks, and I loathe repacks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when they sell their repack or they have the repack on, I just tune out. I don't want to be in the room. I don't want to be in the channel. I hate them. I don't want to talk about them. And yes, that's a hypocrite in me. But I don't know.
But
But anyway, go back.
breaking is fueling repacks.
I don't disagree with you at all. Because again, here's what I think. I look back to 2015, 2016, 2017. I felt like the market self-regulated. There were
Mm-hmm.
probably a handful, maybe a dozen major breakers who were moving most of the product. If any of them screwed up, you would hear about it, and they would not necessarily be banned, but they would not do well afterwards, right? And they also, because there were so many of them, the prices of breaks were relatively in check, right? You had allocated price. So anytime a product came out, it came out at relatively fair. Like breaking used to be cheaper than buying boxes. Like I remember back in 2018, it was cheaper for me to buy into a break in a case on Leighton than it was if I were to buy a case. A case might be $1,200. The break might actually come at $1,100. Another thing breakers used to do things is like they'd analyze a checklist and they combine teams. If a team had no freaking hits, Atlanta had no hits, so they'd combine it.
But look at Prism when it got dropped. There were hits in it they didn't even know existed. It wasn't on the checklist. They were pulling autograph cards out of first off the line. But now for sure. But how do we not have a checklist prior to a product being released? That is and not even be right.
Well, again, go
You don't
back
even
to
know
this.
what you don't even know what's in the product.
Well,
It's
to answer your
horrible.
question, that's human nature. But if I were to add regulation to this market, I would say that before a product can come out to market and be, break, it has to have a published checklist. It's kind of like a casino. If you don't publish the odds, or if you don't
Odds,
publish
yeah.
you know what I'm saying, how do you run the damn game? I don't know. But that's why I'm saying those are things that I do think like, and the reason I even say this, we need this if we want the hobby to grow, because hobby's growth, in my opinion, is going to be mostly through breaking. So many people will tell you stories about how they got in a break or saw a buddy in the break. I think breaking's very positive, but there's a lot of them will tell you how they got screwed, or they made mistakes, or they got taken advantage of, or they didn't get the right hit, or they. So I really think, again, like for example, when you hear the stories of bad shipping or guy doesn't ship the stuff, I think
Yeah.
there should be a someplace you can publish that review. They could be verified, that a
Yeah.
that a third party audit could go into the breaker and say, hey, we have a complaint from this person who said this following thing happened, and they could go back to the video. I think, for example, here's a couple examples. Every breaker should have to keep live or keep video record of all breaks for 90 days, right? It's not a rule, not a regulation. Maybe it's a best practice, right?
Anything ever really deleted, Ziggy?
It depends. You'll see some breakers don't, and I know many breakers. For example, IG for a while did not have replays, right? I think it was very hard to find
Yeah.
replays or something.
Yeah.
TikTok didn't have them, and that blew my mind when breaking took over in 2020, and these people were running breaks without any replays. I'm like, how the hell do you even do this?
Hmm.
But that happened,
Oh yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's those things I think that I would love to see these larger breakers kind of come together and maybe create some best practices, a code of ethics. Um, I
It would
also
be
think
nice if we had a round table, a circle of people that could govern the thing. I think the biggest problem you're always going to run into, these companies don't want people digging into what they do on the back end. Like I've always said, Panini was like chaining up everybody in a little room, and they're not allowed to leave, and they bring food into them, and they're not allowed to talk to anybody, because it's like this tiny little core of people are the only people that really know everything. Everybody else is just told. It's like the government, where you're compartmentalizing everything, and only this core group really knows what's going on. That's how I've felt that a lot of card companies have been ran.
Well, I don't disagree. I do think, though, again, right now we're in a place where things could change,
Yeah.
because Fanatics will have master license control, because Fanatics they're growing the hobby with gambling. They're the ones that have the hits, the chase hits, and the Tops Now cards. In fact, I'm disappointed that Panini doesn't have that. Like, why does the Panini Now have 1-to-1 cards and number 10 cards? It
I
seems to me
if
that's like a no-brainer.
the model works and they just don't use it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, again, I hope, again, I guess part of this conversation, and then we'll go off this. I want to start talking more about breaks and what you're kind of doing and how we buy into breaks. And we'll come back to regulation with this. But for people out there, if you're a breaker out there, I hope that you would start thinking about this and be proactive in this industry. Publish your best practices. Maybe have a training video for your guys who are going through breaks. Go through. I'll tell you one thing that bothers me. I see a lot of breakers as they grow. They're really great breakers, and you can tell they hired help, and the help sucks.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, the help doesn't
Well, it's
know what
like
the help
anywhere
they're doing.
else. The help's always the hardest thing to find.
I know, but again, I think there should be a higher expectation. I don't know. Maybe I'm asking too much. You should know what the hell you're opening. You should know what the difference is between a shiny card and non. I was in a break recently where the guy was going through first of the line Prism, and he didn't even pay attention to anything except for the shiny color
Yeah.
cards. And
Red thing,
I
blue
had an
thing.
AR. I had an AR silver prism in it, and only because I slowed the camera down did I even see it in the damn thing. Because it just goes over it. I'm like, hold on, that's Anthony Richardson. That's a silver prism. And I reach out to the breaker, and the breaker, I don't know what. Well, I will figure who the breaker was, because I do want to talk about them. They actually said it was one of their. I guess they subbed it out to somebody else, some other breaking
Yeah,
company was running
they
for it.
sub stuff out all the time.
Yeah, which blew my mind. My mind.
That's
Anyway,
whatnot's like that a lot right now.
yeah, it is, and I guess that's another thing too. I don't know if you can get your hands around the beast that's sports card breaking. You're never going to regulate it all, right? It's kind of like drinking or growing weed. There's somebody's going to do a homegrown business.
Yeah.
But I think for the big guys, they could. Anyway, we'll come back to it. So, what have you been involved in? Have you been doing breaks? Have you been in anything recently?
I've been in some small stuff with Stadium Club. I've actually gotten decent teams. I just haven't gotten big hits, because at the end of the day, there's multiple avenues to getting something in a break.
Yep.
I usually prefer a random break, unless it's something I'm targeting, like with the Buccaneers, or when Prism got released, the actual hobby product. I was going after Cansey and Diaby, a couple Buccaneer guys that I think are
Yep.
very good potential future defensive top players, which are cheap for me because nobody's really chasing those things.
Yep.
But getting into case breaks, what I did notice is the lack of CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Richardson. Like when you're watching now blasters getting broken and you're getting way more base rookies and light colored variations versus hobby boxes, which you're lucky to get like maybe 2 out of a case.
I know.
That's horrible.
I know.
The odds are horrible. Like they definitely loaded it towards retail for the base version, even probably silvers, to be honest with you. And you're literally only hoping for hard color out of hobby and first off the line.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, it's sad. It's sad to me because the retail, there's so much damn shiny.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so much in football, there's so much unnumbered.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I'm not going to be negative Nancy and go, obviously, they're printing more than they ever have. I mean, clearly have. I would say it makes me faster to cash out. Like when I did my Texan breaks, I wish I had done more Texan breaks. I got no CJ that aren't numbered. All I got was a silver, a bunch of inserts, bunch of base.
And how many breaks were you in Texans?
Full breaks of Texans. I want to say 2 full cases of the blasters, 2 hobby boxes, and I think I got into another mix with 1 other hobby box, maybe 4 hobby boxes total, and 20 and 40 blasters. And the blasters were actually a pretty good deal when you think about what I was, because in a blaster I'm paying about $280, $250 for a case, and I was getting 1 shiny CJ and 1 base CJ, and normally an insert or 2.
Would a silver CJ be the best CJ you could pull out of retail? No, I'm sorry, a red. I'm sorry, the red. I think the red would be.
No, you're right. You're right.
The retail red, because I don't know how many of those there are, but there's not a lot.
You're right. It would be one of those weird retail short prints, but the chase, in my opinion, is the silver. It's the most.
I would say in retail though would be the red, just because it's color match.
It is, but there's so few of those. I mean, you're right. I'm saying as far as when I'm getting
it's easier to hit that than a gold, though. But unfortunately, I mean, how many reds do you think they print?
I don't know.
Because now, like again, I follow my main guys.
Yeah.
And for Diaby, for instance, I've only seen 3 reds come out so far.
So let me ask you.
I've only seen 1.
Let me ask you this too: when you do breaks, are you using the same breakers? Are you bouncing around?
So when I was buying on eBay, AMT had a ton of case breaks on eBay where I could bid per player. And I like player auctions or being able to buy that. And there's not a lot of guys that do players because there's a lot of work in the front and back end. Yeah. But I do prefer them over team breaks because team breaks can be all over the place. And I hate half case breaks. I either want to be in the full thing or I almost don't feel like I want to be in it unless I saw the first half. And now I'm like, okay, I'm willing to now take this chance because to get into a spot that we all want, you got to pay a lot of money. And that's where I'd sometimes rather be in a random and just end up with what I get because sometimes the best card is not the best team of the best player. So you have to always keep that in the back of your mind. What are you trying to achieve? Most people, I believe, get into breaks trying to hit the most valuable thing they possibly can. They're trying to get lucky.
Yeah.
Like I would say 85% are trying to get lucky. They're just not trying to be like, oh, I don't care. Let me just see what I can build my set with. No, nobody cares.
Absolutely. I feel like you're right. There's 3 people who get into breaks. People who are set collectors or player collectors, team collectors who just normally, hey, I buy the Cubs. Every time my buddy has the Cubs, I'm a Cubs buyer. There's guys who are strategic about it. They're whales. They hunt the big teams. They're paying the big money. And there's people who are just gambling. You just look at it that way. And it's just like poker. When you go to the poker casino, there's a guy who's there. He's got $100 at night. He doesn't care what he's doing with it. He's going to play there until he loses it. And there's another guy who lives there, right? He's got calm.
Every case sweating, drinking water.
But he's making a living. He's got calms. He's got a hotel room probably stay at the night. He's probably up double stack. And you're like, how's this guy do it? So I don't know. I tell you, it's funny. When I got into breaks, I remember there were these whales who would they're always buying the first big teams. They'd be like, who the hell's paying that much?
As soon as it hits, it's gone. It's like, what the heck? I didn't get to look at it. What was the price? I didn't even know what the price was.
Exactly, which is why I would say it made me then hunt for other places, right? Like Facebook groups.
I also used to feel that a lot of times whoever was buying the big team was also the company doing the break.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I
because,
think it
hey,
happens
I'm gonna let them
often.
pay for the rest of this, and if I
Absolutely.
hit big out of this, yes. If not, I've lost nothing.
Absolutely. Often, 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 often,
Yeah.
often. That's something that I do think should be regulated, though. Do you see what I'm
That's
saying?
there's too many
Now,
breakers.
at the same time, it's hard to do that because is it wrong to do that?
No, because I've even had guys openly say, "Hey, I'm keeping this team." Like, let's say
Yeah.
when Justin Fields came out, perfect example.
Yep.
A guy's then he's die-hard Bears fan. Like,
Yep.
he's
Yep.
like, "Listen, straight up, I'm keeping the Bears. I'm not even offsetting any of the other prices. These are the prices based on somebody else. To be
Yep.
fair, I'm taking the Bears. So if I take the hit, I take the hit."
I have seen that, but you're
Yeah.
right. I have like a friend of mine, one of my breakers. He's a Marlins fan. He takes the Marlins every year, but that's different. But if a breaker is always taking the hot team, like if a breaker is sitting there, he always has the Texans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, he always has the Spurs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That
It's
would
like,
be
whoa,
frowned
whoa, whoa,
upon.
whoa, whoa.
Yeah. But again, that's something that I don't think, I'll say another thing I've seen too. There are a lot of breaker communities now where the breakers used to be more competitive. Okay, I'll put it that
Mm-hmm.
way. If I think of the old breakers, I'm thinking Mojo breaks, Platinum breaks, Leighton breaks. Who are some other ones? Firehand breaks, Jaspy breaks. These guys weren't necessarily friendly. They didn't share pricing. They didn't do collaborations together. Nowadays, a lot of these guys are intertwined. Like Blaze breaks, and I want to say some other breaker are close. Wizzy breaks or Wizzy somebody. And then I want to say, isn't Backyard close to the Seablez guys or something? There's just a lot of
There's a bunch of them that have ties to each other
yeah.
on the back end, and they work with each other, and they kind of tolerate each other. I don't think a lot of them like each other.
I wonder if they're buying together. Again, I'm not against that, but I'm just
They
curious
they probably
because
all they probably are all grouped together, buying from the same place directly as a group. Like, there's probably some type of, hey, if we had more power, could we get a better price break?
yeah.
And then they go in that way. But you got to think about the exchange of money and how they're tracking that
Well,
too.
I'm just saying those are the reason I mentioned those breakers is because I think of those breakers as what I think of them as unallocated pre-COVID.
Yeah.
They probably allocated now, but before COVID, like I'll say, here's another thing I'll say. I was shocked that people got into breaking during COVID. And what I mean by that is before that, you could be a kitchen breaker. But if you were
Mm-hmm.
going to go get allocated NT cases, you weren't going to do that. You couldn't get NT cases.
No.
Those things were locked up to either the local card stores or the Laytons and the Platinum Breakers. You could not. And I know a lot of people started their own little, allocations, work with Peachtree, trying to be a breaker to someone someday get a case of NT. They never got there. And then all of a sudden, you have these breakers coming in COVID that, I guess they pony up the money. They're paying aftermarket and then passing that doubled up to the consumer. They got into it. And that shocked the hell out of me. I mean, that COVID changed the breaking community, right? You see what I'm saying?
It
Like,
changed the hobby though. It changed the whole
oh,
hobby.
absolutely. But
But it was a mix of that and The Last Dance is what created that hard spike
I know. I guess my point is, I think it made breaking worse.
at that time.
COVID
Yes.
made breaking worse. Breaking before that was in my opinion, it was more self-regulated, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah. 100% self-regulated.
let me give
100%.
you
Way
another
way more.
example. I never heard breakers give you valuations pre-COVID. A breaker would never tell you that's a $500 card. That card's $1,000. They would say, "Oh, nasty hit, moist." They give you all these sexy names they could say. They
Yeah.
never gave valuations. COVID hits, and these kitchen breakers, and I don't mean, they were throwing the numbers out. That card just
Mm-hmm.
sold for this much. That card's
Yep.
on Market Movers. That card's on Card Ladder. They threw numbers out and that changed things, man. It really did because it
Yeah.
attracted people who were just like one of the stories I remember was DAP Sports saying how he was a retail breaker buying retail product and
Mm-hmm.
made $70,000 in one night in breaks on retail. Now think about that. That just blows my mind. I mean, think of the markup, dude.
Oh, it's got to be ridiculous. But that's why, I mean, you always wonder why these people are doing it. Because if you think about all the work, all the stuff you got to deal with, all the shipping, how is it worth it? Well, obviously it is. So it's got to, for them to keep doing it and be successful
Yes.
at it.
Yes and
Think
no.
about
I
it.
mean,
How many breakers do you know that have stopped breaking?
I'll put it this way: you're right. If they're making those margins, they'll keep doing it because the money's there.
Yeah. Yep.
If you're
And if they're
breaking
not
because,
having a real job,
yep,
come on,
I'll
you're
just
opening
put it this way:
cards.
I would not do breaking because to me it's not worth the money. Like I would not feel good charging what I would want to.
I just don't know what the money is.
It's whatever I guess these people charge. I mean, think about and what I mean by that is
I
You
don't
can
know the
look at it.
first charge. I don't even know what they're buying it from. And that's the thing is, I don't think a lot
Okay.
of people know what a lot of these people are buying it for.
Okay, so I'll give you an example because I did look into this a while ago. You can buy from Peachtree, right? Or you get
Mm-hmm.
allocations or pre-order or whatever, and then you simply are going to mark it up based on what the market price is when it comes out. And that's what the secret is that most
Yeah.
people are buying this stuff. Let's say $1,000 a case. When it hits
Yeah.
the market, Prism comes out. Oh wow, it's now $3,000 a case. So they build their brakes on that $3,000
Yeah.
pricing. They used to make it lower than that, and then as long
Mm-hmm.
as you can total up, people would buy into those brakes, and they're making the
Yeah.
difference off that. Right. The nice thing is you're dividing the difference. A great one
Mm-hmm.
is just in the random teams, right? Because let's say I charge you $10 per team, 30 teams, that's $300 for every break. Right. I
I
can put
wonder how
one
much
box together.
I wonder how much the guys that do the player auctions, how much they actually get, because I feel like that would be the best
It
bang for your
absolutely is.
buck.
It absolutely is.
But nobody likes to do it. Which, if it's good money, I don't see why you wouldn't do it. Because if you build it one time and you have a bunch of that product, you can just keep relisting it all.
It'd be great to talk to a breaker who does that and why they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it saves a lot of times on shipping because you're not shipping the whole checklist. Normally the whole
Mm-hmm.
checklist isn't hitting,
Yep.
right? You're selling the whole checklist. So I'm just going to assume a few things. You're probably making money on not selling 40% of the spots. You know what I'm saying? Where
Yeah.
nothing actually has to go out.
Yep. And you
Have
don't
you
have to
used
ship anything. There's no shipping cost, nothing.
have you used pastime breaks?
No, I haven't used pastimes.
He's a big one on
No.
eBay. Does player breaks. I've used him over the years. I've used him. And you mentioned what was the one you mentioned? AMT or
Yeah, AMT. There's AMT and there's an ALT and there's another one that I've used that are on eBay. One of them is out of California. The only thing I didn't like about that is the shipping time from after
Yep.
the break broke to when I got the product felt like 2 weeks. That's to me too long, especially if I hit something good. I mean, I hope they offer me to send it faster, but at the end of the day, I kind of want my card sooner than later, especially on a new product.
Yep.
Iron Lion's one that I always like to break, but I've been breaking with them for a very long time. And Iron Lion gets their stuff out sometimes same day. Like
Yeah.
I'll be in a break, and then a day and a half later, it's in my mailbox.
That's
And
nice.
they're over in Colorado, and I'm in Tampa, Florida. So I'm getting something in 2 days, regular mail.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
I would say that's a key differentiation. I would say for some of these guys. For me, I don't mind some of the guys. I'll even tell you what I'm breaking. I was breaking Prism. I had the guy hold my stuff for
Mm-hmm.
several weeks. But I
I have a
agree with you.
Facebook guy,
Yeah,
that does that.
Yeah, but having that communication with who you're breaking with, whether you want to ship immediately, if they're shipping or not,
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, depending on how fast you get it, it makes a huge difference. Anything coming up? Are you going to do any? Let me ask you this: are you going to do any NBA Prism, and are you going to do any Series One?
I've passed on
Football?
Prism so many times now for basketball. Basketball right now is just kind of pissing me off, to be
I
honest
know.
with you. I don't like the way it is right now. It's not exciting, but I mean, a lot of product right now is kind of pissing me off. Yes, Series 1, I did buy those Fanatics blasters that came out today for the exclusive through Fanatics with those hits.
Yep.
I, for some reason, think they might load those up on purpose for selling stuff later. Especially for like buying stuff on their website direct. Hey, I bought them here. I can only get this stuff here, and look at all the stuff I hit. Look how good this product was. We don't
So let me
know
ask you,
still everything that's
why
in it. We have an idea though.
why buy the boxes versus buying the breaks of that product?
I'm a ripper. I like ripping at heart. I like the
Okay.
chase. I enjoy opening my own product
Okay.
to have my own cards, and there is always something about everything in a box being yours versus you get a team and you end up with 1, 3, 5, 0 cards. There's that
How
too.
much?
Tops, I'd rather go into breaks when Chrome comes out
Uh-huh.
than paper because
I
just
agree.
Chrome's just obviously a thing. So this is more of like a playtime for me, and I want to see what this product from Fanatics really looks like in my
Yep.
hands and how it feels because there's also more cards in this blaster than there are a regular blaster as well. So right now, bang for your buck product wise, this looks pretty darn good.
Oh,
So
I agree.
why
In
not?
fact, I don't know if you follow. Is it Grip and Rip Sports? He
I
did a
know. I know
review
that.
on it.
Yep.
It's funny. You follow my channel. I've decided this year I'm just going to do PYT breaks. I mean, I normally buy boxes, trace retail. I'm just focusing on PYT breaks. And this is a product that I will look to get into some breaks of the Fanatics blasters. I did get in the hobby break with Mojo breaks. They had some breaks already posted. I jumped in a few of those. I jumped in what was at the I think I have the Dodgers in a jumbo case.
Okay.
And then I looked at Prism. Mojo did list their Prism. They have the Spurs in a full 12-box case of Prism is $2,500, man.
When there's no autos involved in a something like that, the odds of you hitting things go so much farther down. We've already learned that now with Stroud and Young in Prism football. It's going to be no different
Well,
in a hobby for basketball.
that's what I was thinking to myself was, could you imagine buying into that break and only getting like 2 base freaking whammies? That would just be sickening.
I mean, how much was the spot for the Stroud for a case of hobby?
Not that much, man. I want to say
I
you
saw
could get
one. It
into
was
it.
$1,200.
Yeah, I
and,
think
and,
I
and
think
not that
though.
much to get 2 base straight Stroud cards. That's their problem.
Yeah, but let's say 1,000. I'm not saying that's good. Not saying that's good. Okay, but I could stomach 1,000 a lot more than I can 2,500.
Yeah, it's just if you had the autos that make everything change because it's just the way it's spread across stuff.
I don't even think the autos would save that price, in my opinion. I'm blown away by that. I really am. Like, it's made me think to myself with Prism
It would be
NBA.
so interesting to see if there was a Prism Stroud auto. Like, what would that really look like price wise for a base?
What also concerns me is this isn't going to change. Like, this shit's going to stay like this for next year too. You know, as far as the autos not being these products.
Well, what do you think about the Bowman U product that everybody's chasing now because all these guys that are going to come out in the draft won't have a card in forever?
I don't know, man. I tell you, in the past, I've always been critical of the college product. It's not my thing. I thought it was a waste. Now, I've watched some guys making money off it. I've seen people, I mean, who are doing it. I'm not going to be critical that way. What I will tell you is I know that I don't know it enough to get involved in it.
Yeah, I got you.
So I'm watching it. Like one thing I've done in 2024, I'm going to focus on what I know. Like Prism football to me,
smart.
I think it's a great product. I would still buy in the breaks because I know the autos aren't there. But looking back at it, I think you have the best value short term in getting these guys and selling them between now and the national, making some money. I wouldn't keep these guys long term. It's funny. I got my 2 best hits were I got Bryce Young to 99 and Bryce Young to 75.
Yep,
I love those cards. But to be honest, man, I'm gonna have to wait at least a year or two before there's any payout on him. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to return any big.
No, but there's always going to be hype around them. They go get somebody in the draft. People are like, oh, they're going to match up really well, and they start hyping it up, and then it sells. That's just what they do.
Yeah. But I am excited. I'm excited too. I agree with you on Chrome. I'm not gonna buy any retail. I'm not buying any high boxes of Series 1. I'll only do breaks. I do think this year I'm going hard in Chrome because I wanted the buybacks. I think it's a great card to grade. You get a lot of refractors, a lot of value in Chrome. And I'm hoping that maybe
I thought about
NBA
possibly.
So we'll see.
So if you're going to buy into Chrome, and let's say maybe you want to target buybacks, what would be your opinion of the buybacks that you'd be trying to get? Are you looking for Ohtani Acuna again, or are you going to try and sneak up from behind and get something that people aren't looking at?
I'm going to wait. Obviously, we're talking Chrome won't come out till July, hopefully, right? So you have some baseball time to see that.
Yep.
Right. It's hard to predict that. I'll be watching. I'll tell you what I'll do there. I'll be watching Vegas. Vegas odds give you the best insight on what you should be doing. And that's where this really gets in the tune. In fact, I was thinking the other day, what I'd love to see, here's an idea, and anybody could do this. Come up with a registry where the first person to grade all of Series 1 baseball, for 2024 gets World Series tickets. Right?
Well, that's something that PSA or somebody needs to do because that's easy money for them.
But they don't. But anybody could do this. Like Fanatics should do this. Fanatics should make that instead of that 10 for 10 thing. Hey, you grade these cards or you show these cards, you get to win tickets for the Super Bowl. I think that'd be a great chase because, like you said, they're doing a lot of these crossover things. Anyway, let me see what else. I know we're coming up on 30 minutes. I want to kind of keep this a 30-minute session. We're going to talk again every other week. We're going to talk at breaks. For me, I'll say I mentioned that I got into the Mojo Breaks one box all access program. Did you see that?
Okay.
It was an interesting thing. I'm normally not a fan of that. It was $99. You get access to their breaks early. You get 10% off their breaks as well. And you get into a single box break for like 30 boxes of product over the next, so many days.
Now, with you having the ability to get into breaks early, how do you think that would make that feel for somebody that doesn't have that advantage? Would they still stay with Mojo, or do they just go somewhere else? Well, because again, a breaker's biggest problem is losing its audience.
So I would say this: I've always wished that they had that because I've always wondered. I could never get Mojo breaks when the teams were dropping. Now I get on basketball. I get a 24-hour notice when they post product. Now that's something they published. Should other
Yeah.
breakers do that? I don't know. I would say this: what I like about Mojo, they are price competitive, right? In
Yeah.
fact, we haven't talked about this, at the time, but Break Comp, they are pro Break Comp. They're publishing their prices of Break Comp, and that's it too. I don't care. Break Comp's not accuracy for me. It's just a
Yeah.
barometer of what the situation's like. I'm normally
Yeah.
going to pay more. I sometimes pay less. I don't care. I just want to know where the market is.
Yeah,
So
that's basically where it is, because break comp will show you how much they either do a team or a full break, which a full break can always be a little dicey because somebody might value a spot differently than somebody else. I
absolutely,
completely get that. They
absolutely.
also may know they have people that buy specific spots because they like them and they know they'll pay more.
Yep.
There's also that. They're like, oh, don't worry, Jimmy's going to buy this spot no matter what. He wants it. But
Yep.
there's also guys that I don't know if you ever tried to want to play a little more, I don't know what the best way to put it, spiritual aspect to it. You'll notice certain people hit certain teams or players more than others.
Certain breakers.
Certain breakers. Yes,
I
like they
think
have
it's
a
regional.
special attract, like they have a attractive. I don't know. I've
Don't
noticed
you
certain
see?
people that
I've seen
hit
it
certain
regional.
things, and it just makes no sense to me. Like
To me,
you're like how
regional.
you? It's just dude just hits Braves all day long. Like
I
how does that
understand.
happen?
I've seen it as being regional. Like I see Packers always being open in the Midwest. I see the 49ers and Puka Nacua over at Mojo Breaks. I'm like, huh? Why is that?
Yeah, it's always
I
interesting.
don't
It's
know.
just something
I
I've
agree
never
with you.
tried to like
There is there
tally
is
that.
there is superstition in breaking. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm like you on a lot of things. Like for example, one thing I mentioned, I like to see if cases have gone and no hits have come in it. I'm fine with that. I'm ready to jump in the next case because I think it's due. I think it's supposed to happen. Where other breakers don't want to share with you that they've been skunking, right? They kind of
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh no no no
oh,
no. Most people are never
no,
going to talk about. They'll
yeah,
talk about how good they did.
yeah. Give me the
But
stats, man. I want to know the numbers.
But I
I
tell you
love
this, it
that.
sucks when you're like consistently in breaks on a certain breaker, and you see like the other guys in the teams and stuff, and they're like, damn, they keep hitting all the good shit, and you're in a break with them like 3 hours later or 2 days later, and this guy's still hitting all the shit. I'm like, what is he doing that I'm not doing?
Well, I've gotten in those competitive eBay breaks, right? Where so the same night you're
Mhm.
in the break, you see the guy who outbid you, right?
Yeah.
And you know what he paid, and you're like, God damn it! I can't believe he got that team. So
Yeah,
I
but you
love it.
also have the other one where you're like, oh, thank God I didn't win that one because I
Oh
didn't get anything in that break.
yeah, I'll be the first to admit I sometimes will root against the guy who outbid me, and if I
So do
know
I.
him, that's great. But if I don't know him, like yeah, lucky you, buddy. That you overpaid for that spot. So
Yeah, you're just like
this
almost
is
like you
part
don't
of.
want to watch the break because you're like, God, I hope they'll hit something. I hope they'll hit something.
In fact, here's a topic I want to talk about in the future because you're a fisherman too.
Yeah.
I think that there should be a break pro fisherman bass style tournament where when a product is released, and I'm gonna call these guys breakies. Breakies go out there with a budget. They have so
Mm-hmm.
much dollars to spend. They can go buy from registered breakers that the videos have to be available. Right, you spend your budget and you come back. What are your hits? Right, and then those trophies get you a prize in the tournament. Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
Be interesting. I always thought about doing a breaker league as well,
Breaker League.
where you basically are trying to get better hits than somebody else by joining breaks. So you get a certain amount of money, and you get
Yeah,
to get into these breaks, and you're trying to hit the best total cards combined in
yeah,
order to rank higher. Think of it as a registry. Rank higher
yeah.
than the other people in there for the league, and then you win something big. Thing, just something stupid to do in the hobby to make people watch is really all it
I
is.
like that. I'll say I know guys in the past that did do team where they were team up. They put their money together and they go into breaks and buy
Mm-hmm.
teams across breaks as a team. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen that, and you can kind of see they're competing because they're chasing big hits. They just aren't registering. But I
I
just think
watch
it's a fishing
people.
thing.
Uh huh.
For fishing, I think that'd be a good tournament. Like I think
Be
Fanatics. I
interesting.
think Jeff at Sports Card Investor could sponsor. Hey, we'll give it $1,000 bounty. You have $1,000 budget, your own money. Go out,
Mm-hmm.
show us the hits from your breaks. We'll then add up and we'll then give an award. Right? Who had the
Yeah.
best comped card? Very simple. In fact, I'll be honest. If I get enough money someday, I will sponsor a tournament because I'd love to see breakies competing in open tournaments
Yeah.
to see
Just do
what kind of
something.
big fish they can get, man. Right? Who gets the first manga on opening
That's
day, right? Who
that's the
gets the
game,
first one
right?
on one? At least, I'm a gambler. I love it. I love that part of the hobby. Like we said, we both agree on that part of it. Mike, this has been great, man. I don't want to go
Yeah.
too
No,
much
easy.
longer. I want to keep this
Yeah,
the
we're
way it's
good.
been. Guys, we're going to be back in 2 weeks. Please leave comments, suggestions, and we'll keep going with this, man. Have a great night, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. I think I'm just going to leave the studio, man, and end this because I don't know how to end
Go
the
for it.
stream. I'll
Yeah,
talk to you later, guys.
usually
Thank
just
you.
stop it. All right.
Thanks, Mike.
No problem, man.
I think that's it. End the stream.
It's